Hi everyone, it's Editing Sam. Just, here to let you know that the video that you're watching was filmed back in February when it was actually Women in Horror Month, part 2 of a 2-part series. You guys have already seen part 1, but I couldn't get my life together enough to actually edit and post the second video because, that's just how my life is set up apparently. We're editing. I wanted you guys to see it, but it's actually not a good thing that you're getting ready to watch this video in April because, as I stated in the video, you should be reading women in horror all year long, just like you should be reading Black authors all year long. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point as I go through and edit this. So without further ado, here is part 2 of Women in Horror. Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Leighanne and I talk about books. Today we are here with part 2 of our Women in Horror recommendation. So if you missed part 1, I will make sure to link that in the cards up above. But basically, this is just a list of some women horror authors that you should be reading. This is also your friendly reminder that you should not just be reading female written horror in the month of February, just as you should not be reading Black authors just in February for Black History Month. You should be reading them all year long. I also will say that I don't think that I've read books by every author on this list, but they are authors that I see pop up in lists online, so they are authors that are on my radar. And for each of these authors, I will be talking about one book that I have read or a book that I want to read. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. The first author that I'm going to talk about is Gwendolyn Kiste. I did have the pleasure of reading her novel, The Rust Maidens. It was a few years back, I believe, and I ended up really enjoying it. That particular book is sort of folk horror, sort of supernatural horror. It's very interesting, but the way that she wrote that book and the way that she really highlighted the Rust Belt of the United States, I thought was just so excellently done, and the atmosphere that she created was also excellently done. I believe that she has either another book or a short story collection called And Her Smile Will Untether the Universe. I can't remember if it's a novel or a short story collection. I'll have to figure that out. But that I know is on my radar, and really anything else that she comes out with, because I did enjoy Rust Maidens as much as I did. Next is an author that I'm actually not super familiar with, but I keep seeing her name recommended, especially whenever I have been looking for haunted house stories. You guys know that I'm a huge fan of haunted houses, and so the author Darcy Coates seems to have quite the hold over that particular subgenre or trope, whichever you would prefer to call it. I have seen both good and bad things about her work, but I know that she has a ton of different books to choose from, so I'm really interested to try her writing to see how I like it, especially because I really love a good haunted house story. The next author on this list is Zoe Stage, and I have read 2 books by this author, one of which was Baby Teeth, which is about a demon child, and that book, I left that book never wanting to be a mom, gotta tell you, but I did really, really enjoy it, and I think that people who are actually mothers probably could relate to that one a good deal, but wow, creepy kids. And then I also did read her latest release, Wonderland, which was released last year, and I did enjoy that one. Very snowy vibes, kind of a haunted house type thing, but I do really enjoy her writing style, and I was really pumped to pick up Wonderland. I didn't love that one as much as I loved Baby Teeth, but if you haven't had a chance to pick up this author, I highly recommend. Next, we're going to talk about Mira Grant, and for those of you who are not aware, Mira Grant is actually a pen name for Seanan McGuire, who wrote the Wayward Children's series, as well as various other things. Mira Grant is the pen name that she wrote Into the Drowning Deep under, and I loved that book, as well as the prequel novella Rolling in the Deep, which is basically about mermaid-like creatures. I personally love Mira Grant / Seanan McGuire's writing style. I think Mira Grant is the name that she publishes her more horror-oriented works under. I think that there is a Parasite series that she wrote under Mira Grant that I've had an interest in reading, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. you know, the millions of other books that I also haven't gotten to yet. But if you have Into the Drowning Deep on your radar and you haven't picked it up, I highly, highly recommend. It's very well done. Really, really creepy. It'll give you a fear of the ocean, because that one seems to keep falling into the folk horror category in the list that I'm looking at. So I can't really give you an idea of what the book is about because I don't know yet, because I just started it. But the books do come pretty highly rated, and I haven't seen anybody rate it below a 3, and a 3 is still a good rating to me, so I'm really interested to see how I'm going to feel as I continue to read it. And I know, again, that this is a pseudonym for an author, but I don't remember the author's actual name. But regardless of that, it's still a woman in horror that you should check out. Next, we're going to talk about Susan Hill. Susan Hill is the author of The Woman in Black, which was also made into a film starring Daniel Radcliffe. I remember reading the book whenever I first really started getting into the horror category. The way that that book is written and the atmosphere that she creates, it's super, super creepy. It is a pretty basic ghost story, honestly, but I enjoy ghost stories. And again, I think that the atmosphere that she creates is the most important part. Isolation over the moors somewhere in England, just, you know, foggy, creepy, super, super atmospheric. So I also read a short novella by her called Dolly, and that one too was pretty creepy. I know that she's written a lot of other books that I definitely want to get to. So I read The Grip of It by Jackal Gems, and I absolutely loved it. It's already made an appearance on one of my haunted house recommendations videos, which I will link up above if you haven't seen that yet. But the way that she wrote that story and how it unfolded and how unsettling it was, I could not put it down. I was so enthralled and creeped out, and you should read it. I know that it seems to have hit or miss reviews. I think that you really have to go into it without the expectation of nonstop action. It's more underneath the surface, and it's more of like a quiet horror, a creeping horror that gets under your skin. I know that she has written a multitude of other things that I have not yet had the opportunity to read, but after reading The Grip of It, I'm really looking forward to reading more. So Christy Demeester is a author that I discovered in an anthology book, an anthology about Ouija boards. Tales from a Talking Board was the first time that I ever read a short story of hers. I then read a short story collection of hers, Everything That's Underneath, and just the atmosphere within those short stories creeped me the hell out. It's very difficult to explain, but atmosphere is everything to me. You can have interesting characters and you can have an interesting plot, but if you can't pull me into that setting, then I'm not really going to feel anything for it. And I think it's that way for a lot of people, but Christy Demeester really does this beautifully. In addition to her short story collection, her full-length novel Beneath was actually the book that pulled me out of my reading slump in 2019. I spent the whole first half of that year not reading because I was not in a good place, and that book pulled me out and I loved it. So highly, highly recommend, and I am really eagerly awaiting some more work from her. Next on this list is an author that I actually read pretty recently that you will be seeing on a wrap up pretty shortly, and that is Gemma Files, who wrote Experimental Film. One of the really cool things about this author, and I didn't realize this whenever I initially picked up Experimental Film, is that it is Own Voice as the protagonist in that book is a autistic woman, and she is actually autistic herself, and I did not know that. Experimental Film I really enjoyed, and I think that she has a couple other novellas that I want to get my hands on as well. Next is Gemma Amor. I had the pleasure of reading her short novella, Dear Laura, which was brutal, by the way. I read that last year, I believe, and that was my first experience with her writing. In addition to Dear Laura, she has also written a full-length novel called White Pines. has been included in multiple horror short story anthologies, and has edited a horror anthology as well. So she has a wide range of work that I am really looking forward to getting to. Speaking of intense stories, I read True Crime by Samantha Kolesnik, who is our next author on this list. And if you are not into extreme horror, I do not recommend reading that. It is intense. It is brutal, but it's really good at the same time. But again, be cautioned. Every terrible trigger warning that you can think of probably exists somewhere in that book. It is extremely brutal, but like I said, it's still really good. She also edited a horror vacation anthology called Worst Laid Plans that I am really interested in getting to, also because it is currently being crowdfunded to be made into a film, so that should be really interesting. But if you're a fan of extreme horror, I definitely recommend picking up her work. I'm interested to see what else she comes out with in the future. And the very last author on this list is another author that I haven't read, and that is Katia Katya. I've seen a ton of great things about her novels. I know they've been recommended to me numerous times. The one that I see the most about is The Cipher, and then I also think that she came out with a short story collection that I cannot recall the name of off the top of my head, but that came out either in 2019 or 2020 that I'm really interested to get to as well. I think short story collections are really a good way to get a sampling of an author's work, so I'm a huge fan of that particular format. But she is a name that I see a whole hell of a lot, and I am really looking forward to reading her at some point. All right, you guys, that was part 2 of Women in Horror. I hope that you guys got some good recommendations. Again, the reminder, don't just read women in horror in February. Read them all year long. Don't just read Black authors in February. Read Black authors all year long. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? Comment down below if you have. Let me know what you thought. Or if there's just one that you hadn't heard of that you're really interested in. Whatever, put it in the comments below. I love talking to you guys. You can also reach out to me on Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram. All of that stuff can be found in the down bar below. If you are new here, hi, hello, and welcome. If you like what you see and you want to see more, you can click thumbs up. You can click subscribe if you haven't already. You can also look in the down bar below for a variety of ways that you can support me. Comment down below. Let me know if there's anything specific that you would want to see so I can add it to the list. As always, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.